Happy Veterans Day, Philly. Our region is home to about 228,000 veterans. A third served in Vietnam, and our youngest vet served in Iraq and Afghanistan. But today, we're going back to a war that is often forgotten, World War I, to talk about one man's tireless quest to identify all of the alumni of one Philly high school who fought in that deadly war. I first spoke with Chris Gibbons about his efforts to identify vets from Roman Catholic High School back in the spring. It's Tuesday, November 11th. I'm Trinita Ree, and today we honor veterans. Chris, you're on the board of trustees of the Roman Catholic High School Alumni Association, and you also serve as the chairman of its Veterans Affairs Committee. This might be a pretty unique high school to have such a robust alumni association, right?
It really is. And Roman dates back all the way to 1890 when it first opened its doors. And it has always had a unique relationship with the military. The builders of our building were Civil War veterans. The fathers and grandfathers of the early students who attended the school were also Civil War veterans of the Union Army. And the very first board of trustees consisted of a Civil War veteran, Colonel Francis Crilly, who was very integral in the founding of the school. And when he died, he donated his Civil War maps to Roman. And Roman is unique among all Philadelphia Archdiocesan high schools in that it is the only Philadelphia Archdiocesan high school whose alumni have fought in the Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Persian Gulf, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Nearly 170 alumni have died in those wars. So Roman has always had patriotic ties to the country and to the military as well.
Why did you take on this project?
Well, it was actually a book that I was reading, and the book was called The Remains of Company D. And it was the story of the writer who was researching what his grandfather went through in World War I. And it was after I read that book that a question that had always been in my mind since I was a student at Roman: why was there no plaque at Roman for the alumni who may have died in World War I? Is it possible that we didn't lose anybody in World War I? After I read that book, I finally committed to finding the answer to that question.
So, Chris, it took over a decade to identify the names of alumni who died in World War I. The number of names has grown now to over 30 names. Did Roman Catholic High School keep track of students or alumni that actually went to fight in all of the wars that you listed earlier?
For World War I, we came across a couple of documents that indicated those alumni that were known to be serving as of December 1917. Of course, the U.S. got involved in April of 1917, and by December, Roman had well over 100 that were serving. We found that document, and we were able to use that document to then search to see, of those listed who were serving in December 1917, how many of those had died. So there's been a number of different ways that we've gone about trying to find those who died. Again, using Roman's limited number of documentation that they had, using newspapers.com. An indispensable resource for us has been newspapers.com, and also ancestry.com. So again, out of the 34 that we know died, we found 22 names, so 12 more to go.
Can you just kind of give us like a 30-second primer on World War I? And because there's not many of us who remember that war.
Yeah, World War I began in 1914, and European nations at that time sort of tragically started to form alliances that resulted in what you had the Allied powers, primarily France, England, against Germany and its allies. The United States remained neutral. However, there were certain incidents, such as the sinking of the Lusitania, in which over 120 Americans were killed. 28 of them were Philadelphians, in which the sentiments of the U.S. people clearly were favoring Germany and France. And as a matter of fact, there were a number of Americans who volunteered to help either the French or the British. One of them was from Roman, Edward Kelly. He was the first alumnus to lose his life in World War I, and it was before the United States even got involved. He volunteered to help the French Ambulance Corps, and he lost his life in 1916, a full year before the United States got involved.
You also learned that one alumnus performed the burial service for a fellow alumnus, right?
Reverend Joseph Wolf from Roman's class of 1899 was one of 16 Roman alumni who served as chaplains during the war. And I came upon a letter that talked about the death of another Roman alumnus from the class of 1902, Bernard Breen, who lost his life during the Battle of the Meuse-Argonne. And the letter was from Breen's captain, in which he wrote to Breen's mother and told her that a Father Wolf performed the burial service for Bernard Breen. And the only Father Wolf that could have been was Joseph Wolf from Roman's class of 1899. So an alumnus from the class of 1899 performed the burial service of an alumnus from the class of 1902. Pretty remarkable.
We've got more on this story after the break. Filler Club is Philadelphia's best kept secret. It's the only place in the city where you can work out, and socialize all under one roof. Right in the heart of Philly, across from 30th Street Station, Filler Club is a private membership club built for modern city life. With multiple co-working spaces, more than 50 businesses on site, and a state-of-the-art fitness center featuring 2 full floors, personal training, an indoor pool, golf simulators, and even a cold plunge. You'll find everything you need to thrive. Visit fillerclub.com to learn more and apply to become a member. Discover why Filler Club is Philadelphia's best kept secret for work, wellness, and connection.
You know, when most of us want to learn a new language, it's not because we're dying to memorize grammar tables or ace a quiz. It's because we actually want to speak it out in the real world with real people. And that's what Babbel is great at, getting you there fast. Hey, it's Michael Zibiak, Chief Revenue Officer here at CityCast. My daughter's a senior in high school, and after graduation, we're taking a father-daughter trip to Spain. And right now, my Spanish is, let's just say, very high school level. Shout out to Senior Patty from Syosset High School. You tried. When we're in Spain, I'd love to do more than just ask where the bathroom is. I want to be able to chat with locals, order tapas, and actually connect, not just read the menu and point. So I'm starting with Babbel. It's all about small steps, big wins, and it's super easy to fit into my life. Honestly, with how busy things get here at CityCast, I love that Babbel's bite-sized, 10-minute lessons fit right into my day, between meetings or over my morning coffee. I'm excited to pick up some real-world Spanish before we go, so we can experience Spain like locals, not tourists. Doesn't that sound better? Right now, Babbel's got a special deal for our listeners. Get up to 55% off your subscription at babbel.com/citycast. That's BABBEL.com/citycast for up to 55% off. Rules and restrictions may apply. Gracias and adios.
Chris, what have you learned about yourself, going and collecting all of these stories?
I think one thing that I've learned is I am relatively tenacious. It will not give up easily. I will not stop this search. I have come across many, many false alarms. I have come across many things that have seemingly gotten in my way, dead ends, but I always seem to find a way to continue the search. I've certainly had a lot of help from other alumni, and especially from the history teacher at Roman, John Corrigan, who has helped me out. So if it's one thing I've learned is I've been relatively tenacious in my search.
With other wars that, get closer to more contemporary times, have you all talked about how you're going to keep track of alumni who get involved in these wars?
Obviously, this has prompted a look at our alumni who fought in other wars, such as World War II and in the Korean War. And my father is a graduate of Roman Catholic High School, the class of 1948, and he fought in the Korean War. And during my search for the guys from World War I, he told me, hey, the plaque that's down at Roman for identifying the 5 alumni who died in the Korean War, my father told me, he said, there were more than that. And he gave me a couple of names to research. And sure enough, my father wound up being right. And as a matter of fact, this World War I search led us to conclude that it wasn't just 5 who died from Roman in the Korean War, but it was 15. And we subsequently erected a new plaque to honor those 15 alumni. So it's made us search and verify all the alumni from Roman who fought in all the wars of the 20th century.
Sometimes when you think about war and conversations around war, they become political, they're dividing. How do you keep all of this relevant to the Roman Catholic community?
Yeah, World War I and World War II, but primarily World War I, was devastating to the Catholic community of Philadelphia. Estimates place about 2,000 to 3,000 Philadelphians who lost their lives in World War I, and nearly half of them were Catholics from the Philadelphia Archdiocese. So Catholics and the Catholic community suffered heavily in World War I. That's evidenced by the number of churches that still remain from that era that still have World War I plaques that honor the parishioners, the dead parishioners who died in World War I. The Roman community, because at that time during World War I, it was the only Philadelphia Archdiocesan high school for boys at the time. Romans suffered heavily from World War I. So the impact, not only on Roman, but on the Catholic community as a whole in Philadelphia was pretty bad.
You also identified the injured. Tell me about Joseph P. Collins from the class of 1912.
Yeah, again, in researching this, you come across stories of heroism, and you also come across the stories of the wounded. And there were numerous Roman alumni who were wounded during the war. One of them was Joseph Collins. And at the end of the war, the Philadelphia War History Commission sent out notifications to those who fought in the war to give a little bit of the history of what they experienced. Many of them wrote back about their experiences. One of them was Joseph Collins, and he talked about the day in which he was injured. A mortar shell apparently exploded near his leg, and he lost his leg. And it's remarkable to use resources like Ancestry.com to actually come upon the letter that he wrote detailing how he lost his leg. And his was just one of hundreds of stories that I had come across. But perhaps the saddest and most poignant was the story of John Jenkins, who fought in some of the bloodiest battles of World War I. He survived, but he subsequently suffered from PTSD and alcohol addiction. And when he was in his early 40s, he wound up killing himself. Certainly, do I know for sure that it was the war that caused it? I don't know that for sure, but I am almost certain that he suffered from the debilitating effects of PTSD that led to his alcoholism, and I believe it eventually led to his death.
All right, let's keep talking about this after the break.
Guess what? CityCast has some news. I'm Sean McPherson, the host of CityCast Twin Cities.
And I'm Jane Sihu, and I'm the host of CityCast Seattle. Hey, if you have a friend in one of our cities, can you text them for us?
Yeah, something, simple like, hey, how's that rash doing? And do you listen to podcasts? Because I have one you're definitely going to like. After that, tell them that CityCast has helped you become more informed, more involved, and more connected to your amazing city.
We're going to help that person you know in Seattle who's been trying to make friends.
And we're also going to do that for that guy you only kind of knew in college who moved back to the Twin Cities after graduation.
Don't we all have that guy?
Yeah, and usually that guy is named Todd.
So did you text him yet?
Jane, let's just wait a minute. We don't want to rush anybody. We'll do a little small talk. How's everything going in Seattle?
Beautiful, beautiful. Fall leaves popping. How about Twin Cities?
Today, beautiful and sunshiny in St. Paul. Okay, Jane, I bet they are done texting by now, and I just want to remind them, hey, you, please tell that friend to subscribe to CityCast Twin Cities or Seattle, wherever you get your podcasts.
Or if you don't want to text them and you're really just on Instagram sending them DMs all the time with like funny videos, send them a DM of our latest videos. You can find us at CityCast Twin Cities or CityCast Seattle on Instagram. Thanks.
Chris, this was also really particularly bloody and an ugly war. Why is it important that you are collecting these stories, writing this down, documenting this, remembering this?
Because they should not be forgotten. World War I was the beginning of really America's entry into the world stage as a leader. And unfortunately, World War I saw the advent of technological innovations that were utilized during the war that had horrible consequences for the soldiers. The machine gun was used to great effect during that war by both sides, resulting in the horrendous casualty rates that we saw. Poison chemicals were used by both sides on each other. Timed fuses that were designed to go off at the average height of a man's face so that they would deform the soldiers. It was just a horrible war that saw these technological innovations being used in weapons with terrible consequences for the soldiers. But also, not only technological innovations, but there were social implications that came from the war. The African American soldiers who left home in a country in which they were treated as second-class citizens, fought for their country, and then arrived back home, they were treated better over in Europe than they were when they arrived back home. Their children and their grandchildren were the ones who led the early civil rights movement. So you see the beginnings of the civil rights movement that came out of World War I. World War I was very, very important to the 20th century and continues to be to this day.
Were there Black students at Roman Catholic at the time?
There were, and I am still trying to search to determine if any of those early Black students from Roman served in World War I. The very first African American to graduate from a diocesan high school in the country was from Roman Catholic High School, George Adams, from the class of 1899. So it is very likely that one of those African-American students served in the war, but we did find a connection. Steve Jones graduated Roman in 1973, served as a Marine, told me that his grandfather, he was not a Roman alumnus, but that his grandfather served in the war, an African-American. So we have that connection at Roman. And more research needs to be done to see if there were any African-American alumni who served in World War I.
Is there something unique about Roman Catholic and its students' role in war? I mean, you just talked about African-American soldiers. And at the time, thinking about just American history here, which I love, is that some of these students, were children of immigrants, children of factory workers, and they all gave their life to this country.
So many of the early Roman students were the sons and grandsons of primarily Irish immigrants. They were very patriotic, and the Irish from that era had a lot of problems with Britain and England. And these young soldiers were joining the American army and in many cases fighting side by side with the British who had treated their ancestors so badly. So there was a great sense of patriotism among those students. And they weren't just Irish. There were Germans, there were Italians. One of the great stories that I came across was Vincent Diodati from the class of 1906, earned his medical degree from Jefferson College, was practicing medicine. When the war broke out, he enlisted in the Army the day the United States declared war. The British were in dire need of battlefield surgeons. He is immediately thrust into the war. He is the first American to be placed in charge of a British military unit. Out of his original outfit of 220 men, he is one of 14 survivors. He's wounded 3 times. He's wounded so badly that it was recommended by the other soldiers that he admit himself to the hospital that he was treating the British soldiers, but he continues to treat the British soldiers. The story gets back to King George of England, and when the war ends, he is awarded the British Military Cross for bravery. Again, just one of a number of stories that emerged from my research.
Chris Gibbons, thank you so much for sharing all of these stories with me here on CityCast Philly.
You're welcome. It was great to be here. In addition to my research, I'm also a writer. And I have a book that's available on Amazon, Soldier, Space, and Stories of Life. One chapter is dedicated to the stories that I've uncovered in my search for the guys from Rome who fought in World War I.
That's so cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you enjoyed this episode, please share this with a friend. Also, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. And don't forget, you can support our show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Philly neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.